You are listening to From Ring to Veil.
I'm Shannon.
And I'm Kim.
And we are your wedding planning gurus.
We take the stress out
and put the fun back into wedding planning. Surprising your fiancé by bringing their best furry friend to the wedding. Episode number 188.
Take a second, pause, and subscribe to the show if you've not subscribed yet. Take a screenshot, share it with your friends, post it up on Instagram or on Facebook. Let everybody know we're here.
Do you know that we have a Facebook group? It's called the From Ring to Veil Wedding Planning Community, and it offers great advice from fellow planners that are planning their wedding and some professional vendors out there. If you have questions for professionals, you can get them answered as well. And we'll also chime in a comment or two.
That's right. Mm-hmm. I have to say, sorry, I've not been so present in the group lately because we've just gotten so busy with our other job. So, our other company, I should say. So I'm sorry for not being there as much as I had been in the past, but I promise I am there. I'm reading stuff and I will answer as soon as I can.
And to join, you just need to answer a couple of questions and you can get right in. So please tell us if you're getting married or you're a vendor, and if you're getting married, when you're getting married, just stuff like that. It's two or three simple questions to answer, and then we'll let you right in.
We have our Seattle metro area wedding planning resource guide up for sale. You can find that on Amazon. And if you want the link, it is right there in your podcasting app that you are listening to us. Hopefully you're listening to us in an app that has linkable links. If not, you can go to fromringtoveil.com/RG paperback for the paperback version or RG Kindle for the Kindle version.
Today we have Veronica Silva, president and founder of Pawfect for You, here to teach us about how to surprise your fiancé by bringing their furry friend to the wedding. She saw a need and decided to do something about it.
Thank you, Veronica, for joining us. We're really glad to have you on.
You're welcome. I'm very excited to be here.
I know we did a little intro, but we would love to hear from you, your story of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So I started Pawfect for You, wedding day pet care company, back in 2016. I've actually had the thought in my mind since probably 2015. Right after I got engaged, I knew we wanted our dog to be at the at least the venue, maybe outside the church. Didn't really flesh out any of the thoughts, but I knew we wanted to incorporate him in some form of the day. And I'm laying in bed one night, Googling wedding day pet care, and just nothing came up. And it was like, that's kind of strange. And then you search around on the Not for Unique Services and things like that. Couldn't find anything. So fast forward into 2016, it was, still trying to figure out what to do, talking to my friends. Couldn't find really any solution. So I had the thought of, okay, maybe I'll start this business. And of course, my husband and I were trying to figure out how we're going to pay for the wedding. So we decided to go on to rover.com and just do dog sitting. So it wasn't even the wedding portion of it yet. We just wanted to get into dog sitting. And it happened to be that the first client that came to me was a bride getting married. And she was so upset that she couldn't figure out how to get her dog Lily to be part of the wedding day. And at this point, she was just looking for overnight accommodations. And I'm like, are you crazy? You were literally getting married around the block from me. So I told her my idea and I said, look, I'll do this for free. I'll bring, your dog over. We can put a little, full collar on her, whatever you'd like, something cute, dress her up. We'll bring her over for pictures outside the church. The only thing I ask is send me those professional pictures after so I can start my website. So she was on board with it. And it was my first time dog sitting as well. So kind of testing the waters to see how our dog reacted with her dog. And he absolutely loved her. He loves playmates. That worked out fantastic. And then I used the pictures and I started my website. And then from there, went into the business. At that point, it was just me doing it. So we did have to rely on one of my husband's cousins to take our dog to the church where we got married. So we got some pictures outside of our church. And then we went to the venue, so we got some more pictures there. But she ended up missing most of the cocktail hour, which it's sad.
Yeah.
It was a great cocktail hour. It was a football field of food. So the more I talk to people and the more, I heard those stories over and over again, it's like, I know exactly what you're going through. Really put a lot of focus into the business, getting the name out there, the word out there. And it just so happened that last year I was at a wedding up in Tarrytown, New York, and one of the bridesmaids was absolutely in love with the idea. So at this point, I'm still just a solopreneur. I'm still doing the weddings mostly myself. And the bridesmaid taps me on the shoulder and she says, by the way, I'm the executive producer of brides.com and I want to do a feature on you. So,
that's great.
Oh, it was incredible. So she sent out a video producer to follow me around for another wedding that same month. And then they put it on their Facebook last year and it just got a ton of views. I think it's still up to about 2.8 million views. So it really got a lot of traction. A lot of people seem to love the idea. And of course I got inundated with requests. And I knew it was going to be received well. I just didn't know it was going to be received as well. So I had also put on my website a link for, sitters basically that would be interested in working for us. I was able to kind of match up where I had a lot of requests from and where I had a lot of sitters applying. So at that point, I really expanded into the Northeast. And I knew it geographically as well because I've got family up and down the Northeast. So I was able to expand up into Boston, Connecticut. So now we service those areas, Rhode Island, most of downstate New York, all of New Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia, DC, and Baltimore. So we've got some pretty good coverage.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing team. And at this point, we'll probably finish this year with about 150 to 200 weddings. So it's very exciting.
That is great. Yeah. Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. No, and I'm super excited about it. I absolutely love what we do. And there is a real planning component to it. I really, there's that aspect of saying, sure, have your dog at your wedding. And then it's just, wow, there's actually a lot of planning that goes into it. So I joke around that we're mini wedding planners.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. If you're going to include anything in your wedding, there's got to be a plan around it. You can't just willy-nilly show up, right?
No, exactly.
So the reason we're having this episode is that we had a show about including your pets in your wedding, and that was episode number 67. But this is kind of more of a how to surprise your fiancé, or it could be spouse at that point, with their pet or your pet during the wedding. And I thought that is such a great, unique point of all of this, because if you're going to be having your pet in the wedding, you're already doing tons of planning and figuring out the logistics and stuff. But this is more of a surprise element. Mm-hmm. How does that even work? Can you do it?
Oh, yeah. We've done a few. And I think it's a great idea. I know myself with my own wedding, and a lot of couples, I think, go through this trying to figure out what do they get their spouse on their wedding day, because it is kind of a tradition.
Yeah.
But, you go through, and I went through this. My husband has a dozen watches. He doesn't need another watch or a pocket watch mm-hmm. or a flask or, any of those things. So I've had we've done a couple of weddings, and I have a couple now in the hopper that are, kind of in the sales process right now and the planning process. But it's a great way to basically surprise your significant other. And the way to really do it is, obviously, you have to be a little coy about it. So,
of course,
having those conversations with me via email or, when your significant other isn't around, there's that element, but it certainly can happen. One of the first ones we did last year was actually a fireman who got married. They had hired a wedding planner. So it was actually the wedding planner's idea. And again, it was a struggle. The bride, I believe, had gone to the wedding planner to say, I'm not too sure what to get my husband. And she said, well, why don't you surprise him with the dog? So all summer long. So they hired me, or the bride and the wedding planner hired me back in early, late winter, early spring. And then the wedding occurred in August last year. So this whole time, the husband-to-be would say, hey, can we have Avery at the wedding? Can we have him there? And the bride would say, no, I'm sorry, he's not invited. Meanwhile, she had a little doggy tux shipped to the wedding planner.
Oh, how cute.
And then really, when it comes to the planning, there's just a few things that we have to clear up. One, it's the, getting it booked on our book. So we have the reservation, and we have a sitter reserved for you. And two, you start to think about the timing. What time do you want us to show up? What time, what part of the day do you want us to show up for? Do you want us to show up for first look? So you get a first look with the dog and your fiance type thing. Or in this
How
case,
cute.
with the firefighter, we actually showed up at the firehouse. So the couple had a church wedding. They went over to the venue, did some pictures there, and then they had set time. I believe it was like 5:15 to 5:30, that they were going to go to the firehouse and have some pictures in front of the fire truck. And it happened to be that he got off the bus, and there I am holding the dog. So it was just, his reaction was priceless. So there's that element of just making sure that we know what time and where to be when. And then, of course, the after plans, which we'll talk about we talk about during our finals call. And then, of course, having that finals call. So you obviously, if you're surprising your spouse, you want to have that finals call maybe at a Starbucks or, in a room of your house where when your spouse isn't going to be present, just so that they are surprised and they don't hear you on the phone talking about the dog's plans.
Right. So I have a question.
Mhm.
Let's say, let's just go with, this is a surprise for the groom. When is the best time to bring in the pet? Would it be beforehand when people are getting ready, during the ceremony, during the reception? What are you finding is the best time?
Generally, I would say the best time, if the couple is doing a first look, right around then. Because
Really?
any point before then, obviously the couple is not going to be together, and say it's the bride that's hired us, or the bride that's doing the surprise. She obviously wants to be present, for the surprise,
Mm-hmm.
giving. So if it's, let's say, during the cocktail hour, the reception, it gets to be a little bit crowded. So if they are doing a
Okay.
first look, that's usually a great time. Now, if they're not doing a first look and they're going down the aisle first, usually right after the ceremony is a great time, because at that point you're most likely going to be going into couples pictures. So even if you could possibly arrange it this way too, having the dog show up for the ceremony and having the dog part of the lineup, and now you've got, let's say, again, we'll use a scenario where the bride is I know I'm getting very creative here. So say the bride has hired us to surprise the groom. Obviously, the bride's the last one to go down. The groom is most likely going to be up there already. We can arrange it so that we're kind of hidden up until the lineup. We get to be part of the lineup, and the dog walks down the aisle, and now the groom and everybody in the crowd is going, ooh, they're saying their oohs and ahs. The groom is super
Mm-hmm.
surprised and super happy, and then the bride walks down, and the dog is hanging up at the front. Now, sometimes dogs don't always do so well up at the front, depending on their behavior. So then we can always take them
Right.
for a little walk during the ceremony, which is typically what we actually end up doing. So those are always great ways to include to include the surprise.
Okay, another question.
Mhm.
What about venues? Have you run into any venues who won't allow a pet to be brought in?
There are actually very select few because of old town laws. We're based here on Long Island, and there's one venue that I know of that's actually since closed, but they did not allow dogs because of a town ordinance.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it was very interesting when I found that out. For the most part, I find venues more often than not are very accommodating, and more so than that, I find that venues are very accommodating when you hire a professional sitter or when you hire a company like ours. I was actually just up at a NACE event in Boston in May, and they had a panel. So one of the questions I asked are, what are your fears around having pets at venues? And how can I alleviate those fears? And it was basically just, so long as you're there, I'm not worried. But it's when you've got the couples that want to DIY it and don't remember all those things. And actually, a little side tangent, we hired one of our sitters out in Philadelphia. When I was going through the interview with her, she had tried to DIY it. And I love her story so much because when she tells it, it's so funny because she's like, you don't realize the dogs need water. So here I am, all my bridesmaids are trekking around in heels. And okay, my dogs are now panting. So we have to go get champagne glasses and fill them with water. So the dogs are drinking water out of champagne glasses. You don't realize all these little things that go into it. So venues, I find a lot more now than they used to be, are a lot more accommodating. I still see a couple rules where it's, we have one wedding coming up next month where we can't go into the bridal suite because it's a restaurant / venue. But there is kind of an outdoor patio that's got an overhang. So in case it rains, we can still hang out in that little overhang area and still be part of the ceremony and still be part of pictures. Most venues, obviously, once food comes out, if it's an enclosed venue, like an indoor venue, once food comes out, that's generally when they say, no, you got to go. But a lot of venues have been accommodating up until the bridal party introductions. So we've seen a lot of couples incorporate their dog into the bridal party introductions in the reception hall, but then we have to go right after because food is then going to be served.
I'm sure you guys know who Zola is because they're the #1 wedding registry online.
Join over 500,000 couples who have used Zola for not only the wedding registry, but for wedding invites, save the dates, and wedding websites.
What's really cool about it is it's all integrated. So when you have your wedding website, you can also add your registry to it and information for all of your guests.
Do you know that it's easy to customize Zola's design for your invitations and save the dates? They also have free guest addressing, free matching envelopes, and friendly prices.
They also have free wedding websites, free guest list managers, and you can order a free sample pack so that you can touch and feel the papers in person. Shannon and I are going to order the free pack so that we can actually touch them ourselves.
So all of our lovely listeners, just go to zola.com/FRTV. That is ZOLA.com/FRTV to get your 30% off the save the dates in your invitation order.
Okay, so we talked about the groom. And what about the bride? When's the best time to surprise her?
Probably during getting ready, if possible. And I know at this point, the groom obviously may not be around for that. But, if we arrange it where we have like a little note that comes with the dog, let's say, or kind of an arrangement where one of our sitters shows up or any sitter shows up and says, oh, by the way, this is your surprise wedding gift from your fiance. It makes for incredible pictures. And, it's just a great little way to get prepared for the wedding. You're already, emotions are heightened, but in a good way when you have your hair and makeup done. You're just about to put your dress on and the dog shows up. It makes for incredible pictures. I have so many good pictures where, the bride is just looking lovingly into her dog's eyes and vice versa while she's got her robe on and then she puts her dress on. So it's almost like you get a little bit of a first look with the dog in the dress. So I think that's probably the best time to surprise them. I know the groom wouldn't be around for that, but I think that's a great one. And if the groom does want to be present for the surprise, well, one, you can always get the videographer footage afterwards. But if he really wants to be present for it, then obviously first look, or similar to my previous answer, during the ceremony.
Right. So we've talked a lot about dogs. What about cats and other pets? Surely not snakes. Please don't say snakes, but yeah.
It's so funny you say that. So I started advertising Wedding Day Pet Care when I first started the company, thinking, okay, we're going to get a lot of cats. And I love cats just as equally as I love dogs. But out of the last, I think, 700 requests we've had, 2 of them have been for cats. And they never materialized into a final service. So the more I kept thinking about it, it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then I had a friend get married in June, and him and his fiance have 2 cats. They post pictures of the 2 cats all the time. Their save the date was 2 cats. So I said to him, I was like, Mike, I'll gift you our services. I'll get a sitter if you want the 2 cats there. And he was like, really? They just don't do well in public. They would not do well outside the house. So he's like, it's not really worth it at that point. We love the cats. They're our little babies, but they would not do well at all outside. Even at a hotel room, they wouldn't do well there. So it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And obviously we're based in very metropolitan areas, so it's not like you're going to see alpacas or horses at weddings. Although I would absolutely love to have, I'm dying for a teacup pig request because I know they exist and there's a few of them in New York City. Haven't had any. So yeah, we talk about dogs a lot because that's really been where we see a lot of the services. And like I said, just being the fact that we're in most metropolitan areas in the Northeast, just doesn't seem to lend itself well to other animals.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just curious about that. You've not had
Yeah.
any snakes, right?
No
Okay.
snakes.
As a guest, I would be uncomfortable with a snake at a party, at a
Yeah.
wedding. So that leads me into another question about guests. How do you let guests who may be highly allergic know that there's, possibly going to be a pet there?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I was actually just listening to your last podcast about the name change and everything. So I completely agree with you. And one thing we talk about all the time on our finals calls, at least, is who do you want us to stay away from? So usually we get the, don't go near my 91-year-old grandma, or, grandpa's a little bit too fragile. So, make sure the dog is leashed. And generally, I do say this to pretty much all the couples that we work with. We'll keep the dog leashed. It just doesn't make any sense for the dog not to be leashed. If they are trained for off-leash commands, it's usually trained to your words. Now we're also in a day where you may not be within hearing distance of your dog. If you're off doing some pictures and we're off on the side, it makes, your dog's not going to listen to my commands. Let me put it that way.
Exactly.
So one, the fact that the dog is on a rather short tether, for the most part, we have only 6-foot leashes. And that also brings up another point too. Those long leashes with the accordion reels, they don't even look right in pictures. So for the most part, we recommend just the shorter, like 6-foot leashes or even a 4-foot leash. So at that point, it's a little bit easier to control the animal. And, if there is anybody that we need to stay away from, we can do that. Now, if we're coming in at first look or even a ceremony, we're really not going to be spending too much time near anybody that's going to be highly allergic. If there's anybody in your bridal party that is highly allergic, you'll generally know that. And again, just instruct us ahead of time, just stay away from this person. So that's an item that we typically cover on the finals call. And if we're not involved, that's just, make note of that. And whoever the sitter is, tell the sitter, hey, you just need to stay away from this person.
Okay. So let's say some of our listeners are not in the area. Have you heard of any other programs like this or businesses like this across the U.S.? See, I'm in the Seattle area.
Seattle is definitely one of the areas I would love to expand into. So if there isn't anybody in the area, what I generally say is, one, definitely give us a call. I'm more than happy to kind of walk through this. I have heard of other companies starting up. I know there's one in Maryland. There's actually one in Charleston, Gray Moore, that I absolutely love working with. Her, and it's more of, she does a pet sitting, pet boarding, pet grooming / add on the wedding service.
Okay.
So when I first started the business, I did a little bit benchmarking, and she was kind enough to take my calls and give me some advice on where to go. So Charleston, I know, has a good base there. Florida has a company that operates out of there. Dallas, but we're few and many.
Right.
Seattle, I don't know anybody. Generally, what I do recommend in the cases of we're not operating in the area yet, or there's just nobody there, what I would say is, one, absolutely give us a call, shoot us an email. I'm happy to kind of walk through. But in those cases, my general advice is go to your vet, go and ask for a vet tech. They're already trained on how to handle animals, obviously very strong, because a lot of times they are holding big animals while they get shots. So, and they're just naturally compassionate. And they're also very happy to receive cash on a weekend. Generally, I find that the vet techs are, a great alternative. And then, of course, with the vet tech, they're not going to be trained in the planning piece. So be very detailed in in that planning piece. If you have a wedding planner, obviously that planner is trained on how to put together a timeline and to put together some details. We always do a timeline at the end of our final coordination call, which happens about 10 days before the wedding. And in that timeline, I put together all the phone numbers that we need, the addresses that we're going to be going to, because naturally there's pickup and drop off with some weddings. And then a timeline, this is what's happening at 1:00, 2:00, 3:00, etc. And of course, a doggy checklist or doggy bag checklist, because with the timeline and with the dog, they have things that need to go with them. So I always instruct our couples that whatever is your wedding specific attire, whatever treats will get the dog's attention, you give to us. We supply the generic stuff, but obviously if we're not there, you're going to have to supply the vet tech with those generic things like poop bags, a water bowl, a water bottle. We like to bring lint rollers because depending on the dog, and yeah, I know, sounds crazy, but I learned my lesson the first time a groom picked up a dog and had hair all over him, and the bride was like, "I'm going to kill you." So, I learned my lesson after that.
Well, that's awesome. So make sure that have a little bag of goodies to give to the vet tech or the sitter, right, is what you call them.
Yes.
When it's time to take the doggy away, does it usually end up being that the doggy is boarded for the night or for the week? Let's say they're going on vacation or honeymoon the next day. Is that kind of how it works?
Yep. And it's always, every wedding is a little bit different. That's why we do most of our packages are custom. So I see a variety of things. So usually I see we're dropping back off, probably more often than not, we're dropping back off at their house.
Oh, okay.
So during our finals coordination call, we always talk about pickup and drop off instructions. So of course, whoever your sitter is, you want to cover that. Sometimes they do end up boarding with us. We're more than happy to watch the dog through the honeymoon. And if you can get a sitter that does that too, that's great. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I see couples that'll say, oh, we typically rely on mom and dad or, a family friend that will watch the dog. But unfortunately on the wedding day, you can't rely on that person because they're at your wedding.
Right.
So,
yeah. Hopefully.
we'll do yeah, exactly. So we'll do a drop off at their house. And then, at the end of the night, the mom and dad or whoever will go back and they'll watch them through the honeymoon. Sometimes we even do drop offs at hotels. This past weekend, we had about 2 or 3 drop offs back at the hotel. And then the couple asked us to stay in the hotel room until they got back. So happy to do that as well. So a variety of them. One thing that we didn't mention was the surprising of parents surprising kids. So that was a new one. And I think it's a great idea too. If there are any moms and dads that are listening to the podcast and, they're struggling with, what to get their kids. And, the typical is you get them china, you get them silverware. We're gearing more towards a non-traditional world now.
Yes.
So,
mm-hmm.
If you're struggling with thinking about what type of gifts, I think, gifting this type of service is great because a lot of couples do struggle with it. And as much as I would love to educate the entire industry, I just can't reach everybody. So,
hey, you're slowly doing it.
Yeah, slowly getting out there. So, if there are any parents that, think that this would be a really cute surprise for their kids, more than happy to coordinate that as well. And again, during those initial calls and figuring out, can we make this happen? I'd like to book your services. And then we go into that finals call. We'll touch upon all those little details. When should we show up? How do you want us to do the surprise? Where will you be? Where will the dog be? Do you have any wedding day attire for the dog? What treats do get their attention? Because usually if it is the parents that are surprising the kids, they know all these things.
Right.
Because they're basically their grandkids. So we'll touch upon all those little pieces. But yeah, I think that's a great, there's not just the element of the bride surprising the groom or groom surprising the bride, vice versa. There's this added on where I'm seeing a trend now. Parents are able to surprise their kids with the gift.
That's a great idea, I think, because like you said, untraditional is where we're going. And this is something that you don't see very often. And I feel like the gift needs to be somewhat memorable. You don't want to necessarily give another clock or something like that. This would be something they will never forget.
And of course, the pictures that come out are just so adorable. One thing I will add on to that too is I tell this to all the couples that I go through finals calls with is, and I get asked a lot, how do I get the dogs to look at the cameras? So, because they're naturally, it's hard to get their attention. But if you have somebody strictly dedicated to getting their attention, it makes it a lot easier. And we use a combination of different things. During that finals call, we always ask our couples, what what treats or what toys motivate them, or even what phrases. Treats obviously seem to be the most common way, but I caution couples not to use, like I give the example with my own dog, treats that they're not too fond of.
Mm-hmm.
Like my little guy here, I'll give him a dental bone in the morning, and 9 out of 10 times he buries it in the couch, and he might eat it 3 days later. So,
oh, dogs.
but now if I pull chicken or cheese out of the
Mm-hmm.
fridge, and I swear he's passed out in front of me right now, in my back bedroom. But if I get up and leave the room, he's gonna stay exactly where he is. But if I go to the fridge and I pull out a piece of cheese, that wrapper,
That's
he'll
right.
fly off the bed. Yeah. So you want that stuff. And sometimes I even bring those. If the dog is motivated by that wrapper sound, we'll throw those wrappers in our bags. Yeah, it works.
Oh, that's funny.
But usually it's like chicken or cheese. That seems to be big motivators. So in that case, just tell the sitter, hey, we've got chicken in the fridge. We've got cold cuts in the fridge. We've got cheese in the fridge. So that's what gets picked up with the doggy bag when we do the pickup. Or whatever treats do get their attention. Lamb lungs, that's another one. It sounds absolutely disgusting, but their dogs they go nuts for them. So, it's one of those things. Here's a little piece. I'm going to step back. I'm going to stand right underneath the photographer's lens, and I'm going to use that to get their attention. So really start to think about what's going to get the dog's attention, as opposed to, your typical like biscuit or bone. You want to use, and couples, even the parents, they know what works best with their dogs. So you want to use that. You want to include that as part of your wedding day planning, because that's really what's going to work. And if your dog's not treat motivated, we'll use toys. We'll work with phrases. We've had one dog this past year that we had to say, "Who wants to go in the car?" And so every time we would try to get his attention for pictures, and it worked like no problem. It worked absolutely perfect. We'd say, "Who wants to go in the car?" And he'd look up at the camera. He'd look over at me, look like right directly into the lens. And it was
nice.
Like, wow, this is precious.
Yeah.
So I bring that up because it's a nice surprise. It makes for great photographs. But in order to get those great photographs, you want to make sure you're using the right motivators.
Well, Veronica, you've given us such great ideas and thoughts and information on how to surprise either the couple or each other on your wedding day with your furry friends. And we really appreciate this.
Yeah. I appreciate being here. I love talking about this.
I can tell.
It's such a passion. I know. Who would have thought?
It's a great idea. So where can our listeners find you?
We've got a great social media presence. So we're on Instagram. Definitely, I always highly advise people to go check out the Instagram, just because it's going to give you some ideas for pictures.
Yeah.
So that's one place. We have our website. It's Pawfect for You. That's PAWFECTFORYOU.com. Feel free to email me. It's Veronica@pawfectforyou.com. Our general email box is info@pawfectforyou.com. Phone numbers on the website, and we have a couple other social media channels. We also do respond to Facebook messages.
Great. Thank you, Veronica.
Happy to help.
So thank you, Veronica, for sharing all this great information with us. I think this would be fun especially if you have a fiance who is very attached to their animal, or furry friend, as they say.
It's cool that you want to, if you want to surprise somebody with their animal. Was she talking about, she was just talking about your own animal, right? Like your own dog that you already have.
Exactly.
Okay. She wasn't surprising them with a new pet.
Oh, I don't think so. No. I mean, I guess you could, but
that would be
no,
really
she's
wrong.
Talking about the family animal,
the family pet. It was funny. She was talking about the cats because, cats don't give a damn what you do.
No.
They don't like to.
But sometimes they are very opinionated and they are not doing what you want them to do.
They won't walk on leashes either. So how do you wrangle that?
Actually, I've seen some cats that do walk on leashes, which is kind of funny to see.
Anyway.
But what if there's a bearded dragon or a Komodo or some kimono dragon?
Komodo. Yeah. There's some guinea pigs.
Oh, that'd be kind of cute.
I saw another picture today where the bridal party used dogs like puppies for their bouquets. I don't get that.
That's cute.
But what if it's a puppy and you hold that puppy? That puppy's pees. It doesn't give it.
True. True.
Yeah.
There is that you have to contend with. But then you have handlers there and, people who are going to sit for you.
Yeah, like Veronica.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Let's just pass it on over to somebody else who can take care of that.
Here you go.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing is to have somebody there that can take care of the pet for you before and after and during even, if it's not a very well-behaved pet. You might have to
like my dog.
Pull it off to the side. Oh, my dog. She wouldn't do good at a place like that. She'd be scared of everything and everyone, and she would just not. She'd probably have a nervous breakdown. So, wouldn't work for us.
Well, one would be cowering in the corner and barking and everything, and then one would lick you to death. So,
Yeah. I guess it really depends on the temperament of your dog or cat or other animal. So we just thought this would be a fun topic to discuss and bring in something unique that not everybody knows about.
Don't forget, we have our timelines and checklist on our website. You can go to furringdeville.com/checklist. We are in the process of adding to them.
If you are looking for some swag, you can support us by purchasing some FRTV swag that just says our name and what we do. There are t-shirts, bags, phone cases even. Hey, just in case you want to put an FRTV phone case on your phone. That'd be great. But we also have other things like for brides and for grooms and for the mother of the groom and for your bride tribe or group or whatever you end up calling them. Just go to fromringtoveil.com/TEE and you can see everything that we have in our shop there.
You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Alexa, CastBox, and Google Podcasts. The list keeps growing and growing and growing.
It does, yes. But until next time, no stress, no worries. Keep calm and listen on. Music provided by bensound.com.